I'm Jesse, and I'm a member of the Saskatchewan Science Center's Go Science Outreach team. Today, we are going to be making water with fire. But before we do that, we need to start by learning more about water itself. Water, as you know, is a very important liquid. It makes up 60% of our bodies. It also serves several other important functions here on Earth. For example, it is a vital component of every form of life that we know about. As humans, we need to drink water regularly in order for our body systems to properly function. For example, it acts as a delivery system for carbohydrates and proteins in our bloodstream. Or here's another cool thing. Water is what allows our body to maintain its proper temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. Our body will make sweat, which is water and some other stuff, some smelly stuff. And when that sweat evaporates, it cools us down. Water is very important to life, but water is also very important to scientists. This right here is a little model of water. It's a molecule that has 2 hydrogen atoms, these little yellow guys, and 1 oxygen atom, this red one. This is what makes it called H2O, because we have 2 H's and 1 O. Those atoms that make up water are very important. Oxygen is important not only to our bodies for us to breathe, but also as a necessary component for combustion. Combustions are chemical reactions like fire or explosions. Combustion is what also powers the engines in our cars and makes them go. Now, hydrogen is also an important atom. It is in the center of the sun and what helps the sun actually do a lot of the things that it does. Now, when these 2 atoms are together in water, they're very stable. But there are a few ways to make them separate from each other. To show you what I mean, let's do an experiment. Check this out. There we go. So, inside of this beaker right here, I have a chemical, H2O, which we now know as water. When a chemical like water has electricity run through it, it actually will make that water separate into those 2 gases, hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. Scientists can then use that hydrogen and oxygen gas for various things. Hydrogen could be used for industrial purposes, or oxygen could be used for important medical measures like breathing apparatuses. Now, you can combine those 2 gases back together by simply using a little bit of heat. As we mix hydrogen gas with oxygen in the air, we can have it undergo combustion, which will create water once again. So this balloon right here is filled with hydrogen gas. I'm going to dip this tube into our beaker. I'm going to let some of that gas go through the tube inside of it. There we go. And we start to create these soapy bubbles. These bubbles are filled with hydrogen gas. Now, all that we need to do to make them combust is add a source of heat. So we got our lighter here. 3, 2, 1. Woof. So that pop that we hear and the flame that we see was the hydrogen combusting and water being formed once again. Now, this is a very clean combustion, and scientists are experimenting with it to see if they can create cars that are actually powered by hydrogen. Hopefully, it will create cleaner energy sources, which would mean less air pollution. Now, if you're interested in learning about air quality and how you can participate in some citizen science, check out the link in the description below. Now, I hope that you had fun learning about water with us today. You can also check out other experiments that we have by visiting SaskScienceCenter.com and clicking on the Real Science, Real Fun online button. Stay curious, fellow scientists.
Hey, how you doing? Tommy Tungsten here for Elements R Us with another super special sale. Nitrogen. Take a deep breath, my friends. This gas is all around you. Almost 80% of the air we breathe is made up of nitrogen. It's not just good for breathing, though. Everything that's alive needs this stuff to be alive. there's this thing called the nitrogen cycle, where them green plants all over Earth take nitrogen up out of the ground to grow, and then other things eat these plants, so they can have some nitrogen too. So when Mama tells you eat up your greens, you listen, huh? Speaking of food, put some nitrogen in your food packages instead of oxygen, and bam! Your food stays good longer. Oh, and in its liquid form, nitrogen gets real cold. You may have seen some of my business associates using liquid nitrogen to freeze all sorts of stuff around here. Now don't give old Tommy the cold shoulder. You come on down to Elements R Us and pick up some nitrogen today. And when you get there, tell him Tommy sent you. Capiche?
Hello everyone, my name is Sally Science, and I love it when you send in your curious questions for us to explore together. And today I have another great question from my buddy Oliver. Take it away, Oliver.
Hello, my name's Oliver. What do rhinoceroses use their horns for?
What an awesome question, Oliver. Thanks so much for sending it in. Would you believe me if I told you that the rhinoceros uses its horn for so many things it couldn't survive without it? Well, it's true. Biologists call the rhinoceros horn an adaptation, which basically means the rhinoceros lived in its habitat for a long time and realized it could live better if it grew a tool on the end of its nose called a horn. Just like the ankylosaurus behind me grew all kinds of hard armor plates and spikes all over its body to protect it from hungry dinosaurs, the rhinoceros grew a horn to protect itself and its family. But the rhinoceros uses its horn for so many other things as well. A rhinoceros horn is made up of something called keratin, which is the same kind of stuff that you find in your hair and in your fingernails. And biologists have recently discovered that inside a rhinoceros horn, there's also something called calcium. And calcium is what your bones are made of. And there's also melanin, which you would find in your skin. Think of it like a pencil. Dark core on the inside and a softer outside. And like a pencil, a rhinoceros can actually make it quite sharp by rubbing its horns on the rocks nearby. And they use that sharp, pointy horn to dig. You see, rhinoceroses live in a dry, hot climate in Africa. And sometimes when the rain doesn't fall for a really long time, the rhinoceros has to use its horn to dig in the ground to find roots and water to drink. Rhinoceroses also use their horns sometimes to push branches that are in their way out of their way and to guide their little ones to safety. And sometimes rhinoceroses use their horns and their feet to test a big pool of mud to see if it's too deep before they plunge in and get stuck. Rhinoceroses don't have the very best eyesight, and sometimes they might think they see something that's a threat. And so if that happens, they usually put down their horn and charge really fast to scare the thing away. And remember, that rhinoceros horn is very strong and very sharp, and it would most definitely hurt if it poked you. Relatives of the rhinoceros have been on Earth for a really, really, really long time. Like, in fact, the very first rhinoceros was on Earth 55 million years ago. Wow! And they were big. They were really, really big. They were like 7.5 meters long and 5.5 meters tall. That's like a killer whale long and a giraffe tall. They were the biggest land mammal ever. How cool is that? But these days, there are fewer and fewer rhinoceros on Earth because they're facing some really difficult challenges. Like their habitat keeps getting smaller and smaller, and there's people that are hunting them for their horns. Do you remember when we talked about ecosystems? You are not in one, not two, but a whole planet of ecosystems right now. Wow. The The rhinoceros is an awesome friend in our global ecosystem. And there's lots of people working really, really hard to make sure that the rhinoceros community grows strong and healthy again. So with that in mind, I challenge you all at home this week to think about how we can be better friends with the rhinoceros and all the living things in our ecosystems. Thanks so much, Oliver, for this really great question. If you have a question you'd like to explore with me, I would love to hear it. Please send them in. Take care of each other, friends. And this is Sally Science, signing off.